1300 North Formosa and Fountain Avenue. The Charlie Chaplin cottages are between Fountain and Sunset Boulevard, and this is just a short walk. Over to the studios at 1416 North Brea. Now, if you can look there in the distance, you'll see what is now the Jim Henson Studios. In 1917, Charlie Chaplin got permitted to build the studios in what was once considered a residential area down the street from Hollywood High School.
Now, originally, the Charlie Chaplin Studios, it was located at 1416 North Brea Avenue, and it was, Charlie Chaplin got permitted to build the studios in 1917 and open the studios in 1918.
Go on a journey from 1328 North Formosa. The cottage is owned by Charlie Chaplin. American Academy of Dramatic Arts. We're walking toward the studios, once owned by Charlie Chaplin, and even Red Skelton owned the studios. Perry Mason and the Red Skelton show was also produced here. King Studios. 1969, it was declared a historical monument.
And later on it became A&M Studios, and currently the Jim Henson Company. And it's located just southeast corner of North Brea Avenue and Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. It was built in 1917 by the film star Charlie Chaplin, and in 1969, the Los Angeles Historical Cultural Monument designated it as a historical monument in 1969. After being sold by Chaplin in 1953, the property went through several changes in ownership, and his served at various times as Klein Studios, the Red Skelton Studios, the shooting location for the Adventures of Superman and Perry Mason television series, and as the headquarters for the A&M Record and Jim Henson Company. In 1969, it was dedicated as a Los Angeles Historical Cultural Monument. In 1960, Skelton purchased the Chaplin Studios with plans to continue using the facility for his television show and for making films. In 1917, Charlie Chaplin began construction on his new studio, and in 1918, on January 21st, a 5-acre Charlie Chaplin Studio opens for business. Chaplin puts his footprints and signature of some wet concrete outside of Soundstage 3. The inscription is now reportedly at Red Skelton's home in Palm Springs, but I heard that it's since been moved to a museum. In 1918 and 1952, classics such as Gold Rush 1925, The Great Dictator 1939 are shot on a lot The stages are also rented out to companies. On occasion, Greta Garbo shot her final screen test at Chaplin Studios in May 1949. By 1919, Chaplin formed the United Artists along with Douglas Fairbanks, Mary Pickford, and D.W. Griffith. In 1929, during the
La Brea, the Long Prix. Charlie Chaplin Studios.
summer, the studio buildings were moved back 15 feet, widening of La Brea Avenue. And in the 1950s, the Chaplin family home, formerly at the corner of La Brea and Sunset, and 2.8 acres of the 5-acre studio property is paralleled off and is now a shopping center fronting Sunset. The remaining 2.2 acres is still the studio. The 1952 final Chaplin film to be shot on the lot is Limelight. In 1953, Charlie Chaplin sold the studios to a New York real estate firm, William Zeckendorf, Webb and Knapp, for $650,000. The plan was to tear down the studio, but instead it was leased out to a Chicago television production company.
You can see Kermit in the style of Charlie Chaplin. Now this is 1416 North La Brea Avenue. If these walls could talk, and believe me, they do talk, and they are haunted.
In 1958, the studio was bought by Red Skelton under the banner of Skelton and Lutwig Productions to film a TV show for CBS. Now the lot became known as the Klein Studios, and such shows as George Reeves, The Adventures of Superman series, The Red Skelton Show, and the original Perry Mason CBS were produced there. Films such as Big Combo, Day of the Outlaw, Anna Luquesta, and Roger Corman, Bucket of Blood are still shot on the lot.
Studio now Jim Henson. Declared a historical monument in 1969.
In 1962, CBS purchased the studio to shoot the Palestino Productions Perry Mason series during the time Raymond Burr lived on the lot. In 1966, CBS sold the studio to A&M Records company. Herb Alpert and Jerry Moss moved into the building on November 6th, converting the swimming pool and 2 of the sound stages to recording studios. In 1969, February 6th, Los Angeles Cultural Heritage Board designated the studio as a historical cultural monument. By 1984, the exiled Russian artist Vladimir Gavinsky painted a mural on the wall of the studio buildings depicting Charlie Chaplin and many of his famed roles. In 1985, We Are the World was recorded at A&M Studios, a USA for Africa effort raising money to aid the hungry in Africa. By 1989,
Historical Charlie Chaplin Studio, built 1917, declared 1969 historical cultural monument Number 58, Cultural Heritage Commission, City of Los Angeles. 1416 North of Brea.
November, the property was purchased by the Hinson family, and in 2000, on May 1st, after remodeling by Lauren Cruz, the Jim Henson moved into its new home. In 2010, a group of current stars gathered in the same studio as in 1985 to re-record We Are the World in aid of the Haiti earthquake disaster. In 2011, the studio appears on screen in The Muppets. There's a little artistic license. The Muppets is not at the studio. The exterior scene in the movie is the Disney's El Capitan Theater on Hollywood Boulevard. The interior stage 28 at Universal Studios Hollywood.
Built in 19... You ever notice how Kirby looks like they dressed him like Charlie Chaplin?
Yeah. Doing the trend dance.
Now I'll walk around the back.
Okay.
This is where the second version of the Brea of the World was filmed.
The British-born actor-director shown inspected the newly completed Charlie Chaplin Studios in 1918 was dogged by claims that he was a communist. After his immigration status was challenged in 1953, he sold the business. Now, at one point, the site was at A&M Records, headed by Herb Alpert, and in 1972, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences invited Chaplin to collect an honorary Oscar at age 82, after which he drove by his old haunt one last time. When the Jefferson County bought the former film studio in 1999, they addressed the statue of Kermit as the Little
Built in
Trap in honor of
1917, declared
the
in
lots founder. Charlie Chaplin
1969.
has built his operation in a Hollywood orange grove and then proceeded to make some of his most memorable movies, from City Lights to Modern Times and The Great Dictator. Now, one of the most famous acts to record at the old A&M Studios on La Brea was the Carpenters, and it was featured in the Karen Carpenter story. After Karen Carpenter's death, passed away, she recorded her very last song, very last album there. That was like their studio, and it can be seen in the Karen Carpenter story.
Residential neighborhood.
As you can see, as we walk around the side and the back of the studio, you can see the parking lot for the Henson Studios, where you can see the back of the other studios, where a lot of the celebrities that parked and recorded their music in the studios. It's the swimming pool. Herb Opera took out the swimming pool and put in two world-renowned sound recording studios. Now, the Red Skelton Show is an American television comedy variety show that was filmed here from 1951 to 1971 and was an entertainment fetish and an institution and a generation of viewers. In the decades prior to hosting the show, Richard Red Skelton had a successful career as a radio and motion picture star. Although the television series is largely associated with CBS, where it appeared for more than 16 years, it actually began and ended on NBC. During its run, the program received 3 Emmy Awards for Skelton as Best Comedian and the program as the Best Comedy Show during the initial season, and an award for comedy writing in 1961. In 1959, Skelton received a Golden Globe Award for Best TV Show.
Somewhere around here there was a shopping center that was bought by the Safeway Corporation. This is all behind the Charlie Chaplin Studios, King Studios, A&M Records, now Jim Henson Studios.
And that's just some of the shows that was filmed here during the time that Red Skelton bought and owned the studios. It ran from
and this is the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. It's like the back of the studio. Back parking lot. Is this the area where the Safeway used to be? This is down the street. Looking at the Henson Studio, originally Charlie Chaplin Studio.
And the family home of Charlie Chaplin and his family.